So you stole my first line. Welcome back, everyone. I'm glad to be sitting up here with somebody else next to me. It's tremendous. I will let Mike go first, and then, yeah, I'll take it from there.
Hello, everyone. Apologies for getting over a cold. Got a little laryngitis, so bear with me a little bit. I'm happy to answer any questions after. I'll jump right into kind of where we are from a roster build for 2025. Obviously, with the recent move, we have even more flexibility than we had a couple months ago. We have offers. We've extended offers to players. We have not closed any deals on a DP or under 22 initiative yet. That is the objective still for this window. Our window, as you know, doesn't even open until the end of the month. So we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and not only extend offers, but when we close deals, make sure that we're bringing in the right player in the right position at the right age, that all the buckets are checked off. Because the way we're looking at it is DP players and under 22 initiative players are not easy to sign, but it also will impact the team for the next couple of years, right? So we want to make sure we get it right, or as close to as right as we can. Having said all of that, you know, we still, because of the even greater flexibility we have now, we have not decided. Some of it will depend on who we sign, whether we're going to go with the 3-and-3 model, the 2-and-4 model. But the fact that we have that flexibility is, we feel, an incredible bonus, if you will, for us, because a lot of clubs don't have that flexibility that we have right now. And lastly, he just passed, so I will say that we have signed MLS free agent Mason Toye. He's been added to the roster, so he just passed his physical right now. So we're excited to add another forward to our forward, you know, to the current forwards that we have. We're excited about that for a lot of reasons: age, experience, domestic player. Peter and I both spoke with him. He's excited to be here. We're excited to have him. And that's the final piece. We want to sign, whether it's free agents, college drafted players, DP under 22 initiative players. We want players that want to be here. And Mason's hungry and eager to join us. So we're happy we were able to close that deal to bring him here. And, you know, we will have additional signings to announce. I just can't give you an exact time frame on when that will happen, but we are working diligently to add more players to the roster.
So I just would make an additional comment and maybe emphasize the fact that with the recent move and some other things that we've done prior to this, that we have really given ourselves an incredible amount of flexibility and maybe also accelerated our plan much faster than we probably were going to be able to. We still think that the build that we're doing is probably going to be over still from here forward. It's probably over the next 15 months, but we'll be able to make some significant improvements much faster than we actually anticipated based on some recent moves in that regard. The other thing I'd like to do is take this opportunity for just a moment, and that is, you know, I just, this past year, I finished my 16th year of coaching this club, and two guys started with me at that time, and that was Kerry Zavagnin and Zoran Savic. And Z decided to sort of hang it up. He's been doing it for a long time. He's getting a little older. He wouldn't like me saying that, but he just felt that he's put his time in, and it was time to kind of be done. He was tapped out and wanted to go on to something else. And I'll say that I could not be with two better people over all those years. And I'm still with Kerry. So speaking of Z, one of my best friends, tremendous guy, tremendous knowledge about the game. I can't tell you how appreciative I was for those 16 years. Great memories, a lot of really, really good moments during that time. And I mean, especially on the field, as well off the field, but on the field, and that's what we're here for to begin with. I can't thank him enough for his commitment to the club, his commitment to the group, his undying loyalty to everything that we did. It was tremendous. We're going to miss him. I don't know if he realizes how much we're going to miss him in so many ways, whether it just be the personal aspect or also just what he did on a regular basis for the club. Hard to find people like him. And so he will be missed, but the good thing is he's staying in Kansas City, and he'll be here and he'll be at games and get a chance to see him. But just want to take the opportunity to thank him. So with that, happy to answer either of us answer any questions you might have.
We do have a lot of questions. Since you just mentioned Z, do you have plans to replace him or anybody in mind, or is that close?
It's a lot like the players. As I said, Z's been here 16 years. There isn't this huge rush right now to just jump into something right away. For sure, have a very strong idea of what the criteria is going to be from a qualifications perspective for that person. And I don't mean pro license or A license. I mean more of where that person's strengths will be. Understand that also someone that fits into the personality of the group. Never have I once ever wanted, nor have we ever had guys in the staff, especially on the coaching staff, that are yes men, because it's important that when we go behind closed doors that we're constantly challenging all the ideas so that we get to the best decision. So it's more of making sure that the person has the qualities that we're looking for, the criteria. And we're going to take our time. What I will tell you is the number of applications, because we posted the job half an hour after we announced that Z was out. The number of applications we have is daunting. And we're going to be very meticulous in how, as we already are going through them, but we have still a lot to go through. And we're also going to go through the process to make sure, because we don't know what we don't know. And that was the whole reason for making sure that we ran a process, and we will do that. Whether that's going to happen in a week or 2 months, honestly, I really, really, truly don't know. And I do not have, or we do not have a person of mind at the moment.
Going to the transfer of Polito, can you talk about how that started? Was that something he initiated or something you guys wanted to move just to open up space? Or can you talk about that?
You want me to take it? Obviously, Polito was here during, Mike wasn't here when it first started. In the midst of his deal, he changed agents. I knew both of them. I had a discussion with him after the season, not too long, week or two, and just said, he asked me some questions, and I also then answered him, and then one of my responses was that, of course, we'd be open to anything in regards to movement, but understand there are going to be, for sure, very specific stipulations regarding the deal. And so that there would be a transfer. We weren't going to obviously participate in anything where there would be any monies paid going out to the player. We were absolutely not going to do that. So thus the idea of more so that there would be a transfer as well associated to it. And so I would say that it's probably like the discussions have probably been in the beginning stages of this, probably over like 7 weeks, but in the first 4 weeks, very minimal. And then it started to escalate because I think most of you know that the Mexican market, when it's on fire, is right now. This is their heaviest time in building teams, because it's between the Apertura and the Clausura, and either you're trying to win it or you're trying to stay above. And so there's a lot of movement of players, and so thus the reason for it happening now.
Looking back, was it still the right move to sign him back in 2023 to a new contract?
Well, if you know what you know now in regards to injury, you would say no, right? Because from that perspective. But in regards to quality of player and what we identified to start off with and how he started, Cariquinda started at that time and it went into COVID, I mean, I wish I had that crystal ball. But yes, quality of player. He was a leading goal scorer in Mexico when we got him. So I don't know how else you choose a player with better statistics and all the other things. And still, quality-wise, he had it. But this changes things for us in a different way. And this happens with all players. I've had this same conversation since probably 2009, when I first came on in 2007 as the sporting director. And that is, fans love players that are in the club, right? And they want them to stay, But at some point they're going to leave because they're going to age out or something's going to happen. And sometimes it could also be a business decision, and that's what this became at the end of the day. And it's the best thing for everybody.
Knowing that this took place over a short period of time, Mike, just how much did that give you like much more clear room to make moves? And it was maybe a little unexpected that it happened when it did.
Yeah, the way I would answer that is that the last time we spoke, I really focused on the 10 and the winger, and until obviously this deal and this transaction occurred, that is still the focus, but now the 9's in play as well, right? So it's one of the main reasons that immediately thereafter we pursued Mason, right? Because we needed another forward for sure. But even with the addition of Mason, now the focus in terms of international players are the 10, the winger, and certainly another 9 as well, right? So it just so happens to be that those are the hardest players to sign on the planet. So, but we will get there. And again, from my perspective and from my position where I sit, I've said this to you before, I love flexibility. And I don't want to say the easy part, but you have to get to a place where you have the flexibility to be able to make moves, and now the challenge is to bring in the right players. So we'll be looking still at all those positions.
And let me add one thing to that as well, is that, a coach that I played for here, he had a great line. He always used to say that one man's absence is another man's opportunity. And we have, adding Mason, we have some guys in the team that have the ability to become that player and be that lead person on our front line. It's up to them. And if they don't see that, then they shouldn't be here, right? But also you got to work for that and you got to be consistent at it. But they have the ability and the qualities to become that person. The roster is a living, breathing document when you look at it on paper, and you're constantly always trying to get better. But a lot of times you're shying away from certain positions in trying to get better there when somebody's really at their best. And we got to make sure that the guys that we have, we as a staff have to make sure that we're helping them and getting them there. But at the same time, they have to take that responsibility, because about 95% of that responsibility is theirs. If they do their part, then all of a sudden focus can be to other positions or other situations that we have to rectify.
Early in the preseason, you guys said there's going to be an injection of youth into this team, and you signed 2 16-year-olds and a 19-year-old. So, Mike, this is more for you. What did you see the state of the academy when you came in? Are you happy with the way things are there?
Yeah, I'm very happy that we were able to sign 3 homegrown players this offseason entering into this year. And this, I'll give you my kind of perspective on academy in general. This academy players, these are the first 3 homegrown players that we've signed since 21, I believe. It's easy to sign homegrown players. We can sign 10 homegrown players if we want. And a lot of clubs have different approaches to it. My personal kind of outlook and philosophy on signing homegrown players is I only like signing or only want to sign homegrown players who I and we feel that eventually at one day can be significant contributors to the first team. That's why we sign players. I can sign 10 guys, but I wouldn't want to sign any homegrown player if we didn't really feel that at some point they can be impactful for the first team. That doesn't mean that every homegrown player I've ever been associated with, that I've ever signed, has been that, but I don't want to sign homegrown players just to sign homegrown players. And we feel with Jack, with Ian, and with Jacob, they're 3 players that have a high ceiling, have a high potential. And are we expecting them to be running the show in 2025? It's unfair to them, right? But we feel that they have the potential to make impactful contributions to the first team. And that's why we signed those guys. So we're very bullish on them. And frankly, I'm bullish on the academy in general to hopefully we can produce more players that we want to sign to first team contracts.
So as far as going under 22 model, going with the DP model,
Yep.
Are you pretty excited about what you've looked at and who's maybe even come to you for those kind of slots?
Yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. I'll be more excited when we add the players officially. Again, from my perspective, I love the fact that we're not locked into one model or the other, that we actually have the flexibility and the ability to go one route or the other, because it just gives us more players that we can look at And if we had 3 DPs right now and only one under 22, then you're jammed in, you're locked into what you can look. But we have the ability to add 3 DPs, 2 DPs. So having that, it gives us a wider net of players to look at to fill those roles, and that's exciting for me.
So, Mike, you were just talking about designated players and adding them. In the past, Peter's often talked about signing players in the winter. He prefers them in the winter. Do you have any sort of philosophical difference about maybe making summer designated player signings?
I can't say for sure that all of our positions will be filled this winter. I know Peter, and I think I've touched upon it before. I mean, this is a winter, summer, next winter. I don't want to call it a rebuild, but that's where the opportunity lies for us. In a perfect world, of course, I would rather have all the positions filled tomorrow, because it'll accelerate and hopefully make our team better sooner. But having said that, I'm not going to be backed into a corner like we have to do something now. It's more important to get it right than to just rush and sign a player because it checks off a box, or so we won't operate like that. I won't operate like that. It is important to try to get the right guy, and yes, for sure, we would rather do it sooner rather than later. But we still need a little bit of time to get these deals done.
And then, Peter, so for the last quite a few seasons, you guys play a possession 4-3-3 system. Last year, maybe injuries forced you into the 4-2-3-1, whatever the case may be. Do you see your identity changing going into this season in how you want the team to play?
Not this past season, but the year before, when after the first 10 games we got majority of our guys back. We went on probably the best run of any team in MLS from that point on. And we were playing a 4-3-3. Formation is really not, it's not all that it's made out to be. What is the intensity, the execution of the players inside the white lines on game days. And so if I would be critical of something last season, or maybe it's two things, I would say you had a lot of guys underperform, and also at different times. So as opposed to like everybody doing it at one time and you have a 4-game stretch that's bad, you just had different guys doing it at different times, and our contributions at those times were poor. And I also think that resulted in lack of confidence, and then also intensity of play. And if there's one thing that has to be completely different with this group is that intensity, desire, and execution on game night. And that is something that it will be, I think, much different. In regards to the formation, like I said, it's funny. I mean, look at the new coach of Man United when he came in. When he was in Portugal, he came in, he said, this is the way I play, this is what it is what I believe in, and this is what I'm going to do. And that's what he's done. And that's what he's going to do, because that's what he sees is an effective way to be successful. And I think that you can look around the league. I would say you're either playing 3 in the back or you're playing a 4-3-3. That's what almost everybody does, or a 4-2-3-1. And it's some semblance of that. But at the end of the day, it has to do with the intensity, the aggressiveness, the execution of the players within the game.
And then kind of the switch of, I know I'm hung up on formations, is a single pivot versus a double pivot. And Nemanja seems very suited for the single, and then a lot of the other guys on the roster seem maybe more suited for a double pivot. Do you envision a world where maybe you move back and forth between those, or do you want to kind of go back to the way you've played in the past with a single?
I would say that you could also see us playing 3 in the back. I mean, look, give me an example. When Graham Zusi was here, and I'm using Graham because he was basically a 10 when he first started here. Then he was a winger, and then he was an outside back. And the thing that you could do with Graham is that before all these teams started to go 3 in the back, that's what we used to do. We used to come out with 3 in the back, and the opposite side, outside back, would be high up the field, and our winger would be inside, and we just get an extra guy on the front line. That's because of the qualities of Graham. So, like I said, we could still be a team that plays three coming out of the back. You could push one of your midfield or one of your outside backs half the field or into the midfield. It really comes down to the quality of the players. Some of that also is going to it will dictate itself with some of the different players that we're looking to bring in as well, because a lot of them will be in attacking positions, and so with that being said, they're also going to help shape how we play. And again, as I said, formation, it might start out as a 4-3-3, but it could wind up being a 3-4-3. It could be, three in the back, two in the midfield, right? And then one in front of that, and then another, so it can shape based on the qualities of the players. And that's what's really going to come down. I will say this in the beginning, probably be a 4-3-3, and then we'll work on some aspects of that. And as hopefully we get some players in, that'll give us more flexibility within the team.
And then Johnny Russell's left, so he was your most recent team captain. You'll have to name a new captain. What are you looking for going into preseason, or do you already have your mind made up?
I do not. I do not have my mind made up, and I think what you can't do is you can't force leadership upon someone. I think you either have it or you don't. You either, it always sounds better if you're doing a different language, but you either have the cojones or you don't, like to be in somebody's face. You either have it or you don't, and so look to see if we have somebody that steps up into that position or somebody that comes in, because I'm not also against. Look, at the end of the day, if you have them, you don't need to be here for 10 years to then display them. You can come in and be on the first day. You can show it, and so it's really going to play itself out over the course of preseason.
That was actually my first question, Peter. But my second one is, with this youthful exuberance you've got going on with this club now, with a lot of the faces that we've grown to know and love here, how excited are you to kind of renew some things when you get training, because you have a match in basically a month?
I think when you and it's not something that we're familiar here at this club, but when you don't go to the playoffs like we did this past year, one of the things that come here is it goes with it, and that is you have more time to reevaluate everything you do. We do that all the time, but sometimes you just don't have as much time, and we did this year, which I think was very healthy. And we've changed or updated or improved a lot of different processes that we do in and around the team, everyday work environment. And what I would say is there's certain things that probably going to go back to old school a little bit. There's some other things that we're going to improve than we've done in the past. But I still always think it always comes down to the same thing, is the most important thing is the players. And to your point, no doubt when you bring in younger, you go younger, what almost always you get with that is you get desire, hunger, and those are important things to winning games in this league. So that from that perspective, I'm very excited. I would say the staff is very excited, and we know there's more to come. Because of, as Mike said, because of the flexibility we also have within the roster. And mind you, other than a few things here recently, there was a lot of calculated intention for that. There was a reason why there was 18 players that were out of contract this past year, because we knew that this was inevitable, and so now it's about making sure we make good decisions.
So, Peter, with the way you referenced, the team's still a work in progress, the roster's still a work in progress, these first training sessions that you'll go on, what are the big priorities with what you have right now in terms of player development? Is it experimenting with how they look? Like what are you looking to accomplish now while you're waiting to get those other pieces added?
I don't think that changes all that much whether you have your team from last year or not, because you've heard me say this before. There was a year where we brought the exact same team back from that last year to the next year. And no matter how you look at it, it's the same results didn't happen. It was a different journey through the course of that season. And so and also different things happen that challenge you over the course of that season. So again, when you go into preseason for us, It's concepts, right? For sure. When you have the ball, when you don't have the ball, which is defense, offense, transitional moments between those two, offense to defense, defense to offense, and then set pieces. There are some things that we have to, within the group, evaluate to like an example, set pieces. Who's gonna be the server of the ball maybe on a regular basis? Are we gonna have a person from the right side and the left side different? There's little things like that we'll do. But I would say objectively, majority of our years where we have been in the playoffs, one of the biggest reasons why is because we've always been, top 3 in goals against. And we got to get back to being a really, really tough team to play against defensively. And then I would say, look, everybody, it's the hardest thing to do in this game is to score goals. At times, I'd like to see us be, I think the question was, we've been a possession-oriented team. Everybody gets caught up in possession from that point of view, but and I'll do it, I'll describe when we talk about possession in this club, we talk about it in a manner in which you possess the ball to be able to create as many high-quality chances as you possibly can. The objective is not to just get more passes than the other team in the game. For sure, in the season of our league, from now all the way through the summer and then into the fall, those summer months, it's good to be able to keep the ball, because if you're not, you're defending, and in those dog days of summer, it can really be taxing and it could really hurt you. So having the ability to do that, but make no mistake about it, if we have the ability, I want to be able to go to the goal really, really quickly. And these are things that we have to build with the group, but I'd like to think with some of the people that we're looking at, they have those qualities, and they could be a big assistance. But also remember, when they come in the first day, they also have an adaptation period as well. But I'm fully confident in how we are looking to build the team as we move forward. I'm fully confident in the kind of players that we're looking at, and we will do what we have to do on the coaching side to make sure whoever is available starting tomorrow, that we'll build those guys up at least to be incredibly intense and ready to execute on game nights. And hopefully that execution will lead to some good results.
So you referenced coaching again. To bring it back to that point, you mentioned that there's some specific things you're looking for to fill that role that Z has vacated. I know you've talked a lot about how you're constantly looking to evolve as a coach during your time. It seems like there's all this attention placed on assistant coaches with teams now that are either set piece specialists or analytics specialists. Are there any things like that you're specifically looking for, or do you mind sharing what some of the things you're really looking to add with this position?
I'm not worried about the set pieces from the perspective that we'll be able to deal with that internally, and we've already kind of made that adjustment. I wouldn't share the rest of the criteria because, there's a lot of reasons why, and you probably could figure out most of them. But what I would say is that if there's one thing from my perspective, right, being the head coach, if I only had the opportunity to be incredibly myopic in training to only deal with one aspect of the game, then I think it's hard for me to be able to then interject. So like an example would be if you took, you got 10 players on the field and a goalkeeper. So goalkeeper coach is working with the goalkeepers. You got 10 players. If the front 5 and the back 5, if they're working with 2 separate coaches and I'm one of them on a regular basis, that's probably not an efficient way to do it. And I don't want to do it that way, and I didn't have to do it that way, and I don't want to do it that way. So I'll have to find somebody that can stand on their own, has good field experience. Those are things that I would show you. Has good field experience, can command the group. Right? They get up in front of them, and they got the attention, and they can get attention if they need to as well. Like strong personality. It's not unlike what I like in players. I love players that have strong personalities. And the reason being is because I think strong personalities bend, they don't break. And in this profession, in their profession, no matter how you look at it, it's pressure. And if you're doing well, the pressure gets more and more and more. And because you're playing in big games, and you're getting to those areas where everybody has expectations, and you have to be able to handle those situations. I need the same thing from coaching staff too, because I also like it when we go into a room. As I said earlier, I like it when ideas are challenged. Sometimes they challenge the idea just to challenge it to see how the person actually, how much they believe in it. But you got to be able to stand up for it. And so that's always it's always been a great thing within our staff. But for sure, got to get someone like that that has some of those criteria. There's more I won't share.
This question's in regard to the signing of Jacob Bartlett in particular. What qualities did you see in him that led you to project that he would be a first-team guy down the road?
Okay. So, Jacob being from here, has been in the program for a long time. Probably one of the more mature players that we've had over the years. I would include Busio in that world, because Busio's story is well documented in that when he was like 12, he was telling his mom and dad, like, here's the 5 places that I'd like to go interview them and then find their club I'd like to go to. Jacob is a very mature kid. Great aptitude, very coachable, very coachable. Learns very quickly as well. It's one thing to be coachable, but it's also being able to take what they learn and apply it as well. And the positions, and I'd say 1 and 2, defensive midfielder, then he could also play as a central defender if need be, but his number 1. We've had some good ones over the years in this team, but also in the United States playing that position, and it's evolved. But he has incredible potential to get there. Great competitiveness. Whenever we're looking at the homegrown players, one of the big things for us is that, people will look at them at the academy level, and they'll make decisions from there. For us, or for me and our staff, it's always when they come up and train with us, and we have those players train with us for reasons. They earn it, not because we're just going to bring them up. They earn the opportunity to come up and train with the team, especially when we need players. And what you want to see is that maybe after the first time, because I've seen this in different situations, whether it be academy players or trialists. Sometimes what happens is you bring a guy in, and because he's so excited, he plays out of his mind, and then you make a decision, and all of a sudden he gets on the team, and you're like, where's the guy we signed? He's gone. He can't keep up with it on a consistent level. And then the other is that some guys come up and they're incredibly intimidated, but once they get there a few times, now all of a sudden you start to see the real them. And we've seen him over a long time, and especially him. And the way he's handled himself within the first team, like I said, the maturity is fantastic. I used Jake Davis as an example. I would say that, and I don't say this to I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just giving you this story because I think it's an important one. When Jake came into the club and he was in the academy, I don't think that Jake performed all that well when he first got. Actually, when he first got, he was injured, and he was trying to get better. And then he got into the team and he was trying to get back to form. And all of a sudden, and he really wasn't playing that well. And all of a sudden, like in the last 6 months, he really started to play well. And we made a decision. Now, he had come up and trained with the first team many a times, but we had made a decision to sign him to the second team. And I would say there are staff members, not just first team, second team, and even academy, thought, I'm not sure if we should have done that. But sometimes what you see is that it's not necessarily just the quality of the soccer player. It's, do they have the personality for this profession, because it's not an easy profession. It sounds great to everybody because everybody looks at how much money the guy makes and he's playing in front of it. But there's so many ups and downs to it. You got to have, the wherewithal to stick through it, to be able to go through the ups and downs. And the one thing about Jake, you could see every time he came to the team, was that it didn't matter, like if he came and he made a mistake, he came back the next day and he was all over it again. It didn't matter what the guy said to him, like he was there. And so I think that what has kept him within the first team is that, and now the soccer is catching up to it because he can sustain those ups and downs based on his personality. What I would say about Jacob is that because of his maturity, and he's a really, really intelligent kid, I think he has an incredible aptitude to understand that it's not going to all be great, but he understands that there's going to be ups and downs, and he's one of those kids that's willing to work through it with intelligence. And I think that's going to bode really well for him and us as we move forward. But there's no doubt that he has a big upside. I just hope that we can realize it together.
Peter Omar para la Positiva Radio. El último partido contra el Inter de Miami fue buenísimo. Felicidades. Fue buenísimo ese partido. Felicidades también por darle la oportunidad a las nuevas generaciones en el Sporting. Sin Tim Melia, sin Alan Pulido y sin Johnny Russell, ¿va a ser más difícil enfrentar al Inter de Miami o hay que sacarle beneficio al clima? Gracias.
Es una pregunta difícil porque no sé, cuando nosotros pensamos de este partido, puede ser 3 jugadores tienen lesionado, no juega. Es muy difícil para mí de responder para eso, pero yo le he dicho como así. Este es una nueva periodo para nosotros y yo creo que es una temporada tiene mucho éxito y bueno, yo creo que nosotros tenemos un equipo es más joven, tiene más hombre y nosotros sí, muy feliz con este grupo y sigue y vamos adelante con ellos. Gracias. I was hoping we didn't have to do any of those.
I was going to say final. We have to wrap it up. 2 more? All right. Final 2 questions, Robert and Chad.
Peter, you were talking about Jake earlier, and arguably Jake and Eric Tommy are, you could consider the face of the franchise right now, faces, if you will. So let's talk a little bit more about Jake. What do you see his next step is to get to that next level, which, obviously will help the club, but maybe also get him some more opportunities with the national team?
I think first and foremost is consistency, whether it's the individual player or the team, which you're always trying to achieve as a group, as an individual, is consistency in your form and your level of play. And then the other is, I think one of Jake's major strengths, and it's for all of us, sometimes our strength can sometimes be our weakness. He has great intensity and aggressiveness, but sometimes too many yellow cards and silly ones. And those things have to change in that regard, more discipline in those situations. But definitely on the other side of that strength can be very infectious for the other players in the team, which, as I said, we want to be more intense and we need more guys to do that. And he could be a great example of that. And hopefully other guys will understand how important that is, because it really, in this league, it can be a huge result getter for sure.
And then, Mike, for you, when we first met you, you talked about making additions to the staff, an assistant sporting director, scouts, analytics. Can you kind of give us an update on where that's at?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's a great question.
It is a good question. I didn't. There's so much on the player front that I didn't forget. Believe me, but I didn't address it. There's been a lot of moving parts within this organization off the field as well. We have hired a domestic scout. Have we announced that yet? Sorry. We have hired a domestic scout. We are in the final stages of SKC2 head coach. We should be able to announce that in the next week or so, 2 weeks max. We're
Made an offer.
we made an. We'll. That's
close.
That's very close. Assistant sporting director, we are still interviewing for that. And similar to what Peter said, I'm not going to repeat the whole thing, similar to what he said about Z, is how we feel about the assistant sporting director, or at least how I feel about the assistant sporting director role. I've been blown away with the amount of resumes and applications. We have been inundated, and I've spent more time than I ever dreamed of on the interview process. It's a good thing. There's so many people that are interested, and so many more qualified people than there were years ago because of the involvement of the league. So we're getting there on all fronts. We're there on a couple fronts, but we still have work to do there. But it's been good work, and like I said, we've hired a domestic scout. We're close to the SKC2. I think hopefully in the next 30 days we'll have an assistant sporting director on board, and we haven't really even got to the point. There's been so many moving parts with those positions as well as the player front. We will also be adding international scouts, and frankly, we just haven't gotten there yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.